G'day guys, welcome to episode 91 of the Teacher Emilio podcast. I am your host Emilio. You read the title, you can see the background. It is happening and it breaks my heart to be telling you that I am leaving Melbourne. I'll tell you all about it in the episode, so as always, stay tuned, put on your seatbelt and well, let's get started. Did you guys think I would leave Melbourne just like that? Well, not really. Actually, what happened is that I'm on my way to Nusa because we are gonna be, or I'll be filming, I'll be recording, I'll be supporting Nestorin, who's been not only someone who's been a big part of the podcast in many episodes, he's been talking about mental health. Now he's facing a new challenge, and what friends do is help and support each other. So I'm gonna be part of the support crew in Ultraman Australia 2024. This will be very exciting and there is so much to tell you. But the first thing that I have to do is to catch a bus. So I'll bring you an update in just a second. Most likely I'll be getting there in about an hour. And for those of you who don't know, to get to Nusa, you have to go to the Sunshine Coast and then catch a bus, or you can catch an Uber, but it's quite expensive. So I'm gonna go the budget way. And interestingly enough, you would think that like Queensland is just very small, but there are so many nice places. But I mean, there is quite a bit of a distance, there is a bit of a trip. So I would always recommend, if you do come to Queensland, well, number one, get your sunscreen, bring your sunnies, but of course, if possible, maybe rent a car, depending on how long you come for, because again, you will be surprised, Australia is just huge. And well, let me get to Nusa, and then once I'm there, I can tell you a bit more about the event, what's been happening, and maybe we can get a few words from Nestorin himself. Okay, update number one is that you always have to double check where the bus is, because I almost got lost in a tiny airport. Look at this. I mean, some of you might be thinking, how do you get lost these days, teacher? You have everything on your phone. I know, guys, I didn't check on my phone. But anyways, it's I've got a bit of time, so I thought, you know, while I wait for the bus, I might, continue and tell you a bit about the race. Basically, Ultraman, as the name says, it is a triathlon race. Maybe you might be familiar with the race called Ironman. And basically, Ultraman is like the most difficult one, the most demanding one. So for Ultraman, basically what you can expect is the following. First of all, the distance is so long that you cannot do it all in one day. For example, the Ironman, you can do it in one day. An Ironman is probably like, it's also called the full distance, and it's or like 140.6 miles, I think. But with an Ironman, you can expect, or you will be basically facing a 3.8 kilometer swim in the ocean, and then you have a 180 kilometer bike ride. And right after that, you have to run a marathon, 42.4 kilometers. And all of that, you need to do it in a day in less than, I think it's 18 hours. With the Ultraman, so imagine that distance that I told you. Ultraman is so big, you cannot do it all in one day. I mean, I don't know, there might be someone, I have to double check if there is a person that has done this race all in one day, but listen to this distance and let me know in the comments what you think. So basically, day one, you have a 10 kilometer swim out in the ocean. So you do 10 kilometers of swimming, and then you have to then you need to get on your bicycle and do 140 kilometers, roughly 141.8, I think it is. Then day one is finished, day two starts, and on day two you get on your bike again and you have to do 285 kilometers on your bicycle. And then you are done with 285 kilometers. And then after that, on day three, you have to run not one, but two marathons together. So you're basically running 84.5, almost, let's say 85 kilometers. And that would be again like a double marathon, and that is the end of Ultraman. And just to put things in perspective, I want you to imagine go to a swimming pool and do 10 laps. Now imagine how tough it will be doing 10 kilometers. The same thing could be with cycling. Imagine getting on a bicycle and doing, I don't know, 30 kilometers is quite a lot. So let's say, or a lot for someone who has never cycled. So imagine getting on a bicycle and riding for, I don't know, let's say 20 minutes. You do 3 kilometers if you go very slow, nice and relaxing. Now imagine doing 300 kilometers, 100 times that. And then with running, just go to a park close to your house and maybe do 5 laps. And then imagine doing, I don't know how many laps, but I guess it depends on the park. Imagine doing 5,000 laps. That's what Nestorin is going to be doing. And it is obviously, without a doubt, undoubtedly, a huge challenge. It is something extremely tough on the body. And the interesting thing about Ultraman is that on this race, you do get support, but you need to make your support crew. If you have been to some races, like for example Run Melbourne, or like races where like the Color Run, I think it's called, where basically there are 8 stations and there are different things, and if something happens you can call an ambulance, and etc, etc. In the Ultraman, one of the big differences is that you as the candidate, as the contestant, as the person that is being part of the Ironman, you have to organize everything. So, I mean, imagine all the planning, preparation that you have to do. So what Nestorin had to do was to, well, obviously get in touch with me. I'm doing, let's say, more of like the filming, I would say. I'm more like the social media slash, let's say, cameraman, but then also, support. But then on a more serious note, he needs to get his partner to help out with nutrition, to check on his hydration, to carry, lots of bottles of water, to carry energy gels, and not only that, to check up on him, because I think this race does have 8 stations, but doesn't have that many. So what that means is that at some point in the 280 kilometer bike ride, his water is gonna finish, so he will need to change it. This is where his support crew is gonna come in. And he's also got lots of support from Son de Mexico, and you'll hear more about them throughout this episode. And this, if you guys have been following the podcast, you would know about Son de Mexico, because Itzel's dance group. I don't want to give you too many spoilers because I want to bring Itzel to the podcast and she can tell us about it. So Itzel, when you watch this, or if you know Itzel, please send her this episode and tell her, hey, Emilio wants to interview you again. And all that to say that Nestorin has a lot of support, and it is quite important. I think throughout the race, he's gonna be needing help, and it's basically just to check that everything is okay. But also, it's always good when you are taking that challenge. It's good to see familiar faces and people that are there with you. So again, amazing effort, Nestorin. Massive respect. I think that not only to me, but to the whole Latino community in Australia, and basically to anyone who wants to get into running or cycling or swimming or simply maybe do a bit of sports. It is an inspiration and again, great effort. Now that I'm recording this and I'm about to go to Noosa and be there with him, a part of me is like, I regret. I don't want to say regret, but it's like, I miss a bit the feeling of racing, being on a race. It is extremely nice. But at the same time, I have to tell you guys, I don't know if you do this. Please let me know in the comments. Something that I do myself is, or what I just did, is that on this plane, because life has been good busy, when I was on the plane from Melbourne to Sunshine Coast, I brought my Japanese book with me. So on my backpack, I've got the gimbal and all the camera equipment. And basically, I brought my laptop to, edit the podcast, of course, and for work and a study. And I brought a thick Japanese book like this. So it was funny because when I was on the plane, I was studying Japanese. So the reason I'm saying this is like, it's a funny feeling. It's like, oh yes, I miss racing, but at the same time, I don't miss it that much because I really like what I'm doing. But it's a good reminder that maybe one day I'm gonna do another race. Maybe not this distance because it takes a lot of preparation. It takes a lot of time. I still remember when I was doing the Ironman. This is half of this race, and I had to train roughly 15 to 20 hours a week, and that is like a part-time job. Now now it's a bit different because I'm doing a master's and I'm trying to pass these exams, which are crazy tough. But in saying all that, it is a really nice feeling, and I'm really happy that I can be here telling you about this race, telling you about Queensland, about this event, and I think it's going to be amazing. So this is update number 2. So stay tuned, and no, I'm not leaving Melbourne indefinitely. If I were to do that, I would probably make a bit of a longer video, give a bit more background. I wouldn't just boom, disappear all of the sudden. And now we have a live update here from Noosa because I finally made it. I'm in Noosa Heads. Look at this beautiful lake behind me. Well, park, lake, let me check. And it's just a really cool atmosphere, nice and relaxing. Nesta is just behind me. He survived day 1. Again, a bit of a recap. It is 10 kilometers swimming and about 140 on the bicycle. So now he's just basically recovering, getting a massage. We can see at the back the support crew and itself as well, and it is pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting, and it is what I mentioned earlier about Murphy's Law. What needs to go wrong or what will go wrong is just going to happen, and I'll give you a bit of a gossip, a bit of a summary of what has happened in day 1 so far. Just in case you guys don't know, when you do these races, the events have to avoid cheating or anything crazy that may happen. So when that happens, or for this type of events and for a lot of triathlon races, then what would happen is, let me just fix up the camera. What would happen is the following. All the, let's say, anyone that is being part of the race has to basically have a chip that is usually like, imagine like a wristband, like my watch right here, but most of the time it's on your foot. Nesta, or let's say not Nesta, let's say Nesta's chip disappeared at 4 a.m. before the race started on day 1. Needless to say, stress was just crazy, and we are just doing a bit of a briefing there between the support crew, and that was crazy. Imagine that, you're about to start a race and you don't have that. To put it in perspective, this is almost like you are going on a holiday, and the day of your trip, before you go to the airport, you don't bring your passport with you. Or if you don't have your passport, maybe if you don't need the passport, imagine you go without your wallet, without, I don't know, your house keys. The point is that it is something that is a must and you don't have it. Luckily, support crew was there to help Nesta, and they managed to find another chip. They had to come early to the place, and then in this race, because it is a very long swim, 10 kilometers, what happened was that part of the support crew, there was one man that was in the support crew who basically like swam, quote unquote, next to him. He was on a kayak, and unfortunately on the way back, when there was like about a kilometer, more or less, then this person was on the kayak like feeling horrible, and he ended up vomiting. So they had to get another person to get on the kayak and take him back. So that was crazy. I mean, it was not that great. So from what I heard, basically Nesta was going way faster than the kayak, but I mean, he also swims really fast, so that's good for him. So that's another thing that happened. And of course, it cannot be a full South American experience if we don't have a bit more drama. So the next thing that happened was that Nesta, when he was on the bike, he basically had a puncture. He felt like a hump on the bike, as in someone is pushing him, and something maybe strange, and it turns out that it was a puncture. So when he stopped, the tire was completely flat, and he couldn't move. And most of the time you have to change the tire by yourself. I think in this race, like I was saying before, there are not that many checkpoints or basically people there to help you, so you need to wait for your support crew to come and get you. So Nesta basically had to wait for a bit. I think it's about 15 to 20 minutes, and it is just, again, another unfortunate event. But to make matters worse, He was on the 8th place on his way back on the bike after we finished and solved all this. But then what happened was, you guessed it correctly, one last little thing happened. You are like, Emilio, is there more? And I'm like, yes, guys, there is a bit more. And it is basically that he took the wrong turn. He took the wrong turn, and now, he ended up cycling a bit more. Not super bad, but I mean, this last problem with the wrong turn costed him, I think, 1 or 2 places. So he ended up being top 10 on day 1. So he was on the 10th place. Again, time to meditate, get together with the crew, and basically, let's say, prepare and see what went well, what didn't go so well, and just use all this to improve and crush it on day 2. I would rather be honest than come here and lie. Unfortunately, it was quite tricky, very hectic when it comes to recording every day after the event. There were times where I thought more of being as a cameraman, and there were other things that I had to do, like for example cook dinner, which is nowhere near as demanding as what Nestorin did. But I think throughout the whole event, especially on day 2, I told myself maybe best is going to be to give a bit of a recap or a summary of the race and all the good things, what went well, what didn't go so well, any funny moments. I was so excited and nervous at the same time when I was told that I was gonna run with him, because, well, as you probably know if you have been following the podcast, I stopped doing long distance races or triathlon or cycling ever since I completed the Ironman. I recently joined the gym, but one thing is to know that you can do it and the other one is actually doing it. Plus I hadn't run that much, and then I started hearing stories of support crews and people that would run, I don't know, 30, 40 Ks, even the whole course with their partner. So I thought, oh my god, how much am I going to run? But luckily for Nestorin, he had a huge support crew, which ended up being, obviously it was a blessing, but it's led to some drama, and I'll touch upon that later on. So luckily one of his crew members, Erica, if you're watching, thank you so much for watching and for your support. You're awesome. I felt that throughout the event it was almost like cheating, because one of the support crew members is a nurse. So I remember asking her, hey, how much do you think I could run, given that I haven't been running much? And she was the one who told me, hey, you better get ready because you are running too. And again, that was a really big surprise. I have to say that running with Nestorin on the 3rd day is by far one of the nicest. I'll put that in my top 3 runs, because it was just unreal seeing him accomplish that goal and being next to him throughout the Nusa heat. And well, day 2 luckily went well, not much drama, which is obviously good news. But on day 3, the day 2 was challenging, I think, mentally for him, because Nestorin is not the type of triathlete that loves cycling compared to other sports. Like, I've talked to many triathletes in the past, and for a lot of us, or a lot of them, I don't know if I should include myself as a triathlete, but I'll give you an example with me. When I started doing triathlons, swimming, I was very average or below average, and I didn't really like it that much. I don't mind it, but I wouldn't choose to do it. Cycling, I really enjoyed it. And then running, it was more like, I don't even want to say compared to like eating veggies, but it was one of those things that I don't really enjoy doing, but I know I have to do. And it is also really mentally challenging because you could stop at any time. And I found out that for a lot of triathletes, a lot of people who sign up to races like Ironman, maybe Ultraman even, for some of us, it's normally like this. But for Nestorin, on the other hand, it's the opposite, because when you look at his profile, he basically loves swimming. So he's like a fish. He could be in the swimming pool for hours, you know. And then he also loves running. And it's probably I might be wrong, but I think that might be his best sport out of the three. So cycling is like, yeah, I mean, obviously he likes it, but maybe nowhere near as much as the other two. So I think that's what made day two challenging, because it is an extremely long ride and you gotta be on top of your nutrition and all that. Luckily, it all went well. Look at this beautiful Melbourne view. A bit cold, but hey, you know, it all comes with a price. As I was saying, day three was amazing. It went really well. I ran with him. I'm going to be nice to myself and say that I ran with Nestor in about 15 to 21 Ks. It was really good and it was so funny. It was such an eye-opening experience, because it showed a few things. One, you might hear this from him, maybe he's gonna say this in a future episode, or he might say that in the podcast that we are doing in Spanish. But basically what that showed me is that you cannot do that race on your own, and if you want to go really deep into that, it could also mean that there are things in life that you just cannot do by yourself. You need help. You need to let others, your team, people around you, to give you a hand. So I think that is extremely powerful, and probably the run taught me that, because basically he was always with someone. I mean, I think he did an amazing job, and I think that he could have completed it without, not necessarily without us, but without being with someone all the time. But again, I think that having someone, especially on those challenging times and moments, there was a funny time when he said to me, "Emilio, my chest hurts," and I was like, "Keep going, don't stop, you are okay." And he's like, "Okay, I'm listening to you, okay." And that was when I thought, wow, it was funny, because then at the end it turns out that, you know, like when I start thinking about it, he could have had a heart attack. Luckily that was not the case, but you just never know. Maybe it is one of the things about these races where you gotta be really careful. And another funny thing was that one time I asked him, it was both funny and also really, I'm not gonna say shocking, let's say eye-opening, very, very nice, that I asked him, "Hey, do you want a gel? Are you hungry?" And he said to me, "I'm not thinking, I'm just doing whatever you tell me to do." And to me, again, that really reminded me of my time doing karate, or karate, like we would say, because it was like full trust in the people around you, full trust in your team, and I thought that is extremely powerful. All in all, day three was really good. It was also really scary because, and this is what I was gonna say before, Nestorin had a big support crew. So we were, so we had Trouty, Erica, Vanessa, Carlos Itzel, Manuel and me. So he had basically 7 people in his support crew. There were others who had 3. Imagine that. So he had 7. And out of the 7, there were 5 of us that ran with him, which is extremely good. However, there was a problem, and it is that we had another car, or there was another car, I should say, so we could catch up with him. It turns out that as a crew member, you can only have 1 car, and there was the chance, or let's say, the possibility of him being disqualified. So imagine that, you train for over a year for a race, and then you go with all your friends, you get everybody ready, you survive day 1 of 10-kilometer swim, and then you survive the, and then 140 kilometers on the bicycle, to then go ahead into day 2 and do 275 kilometers, and you survive that as well, and then on day 3 you're disqualified. That would be so horrible. I mean, it's just horrible, right? Luckily that was not the case at the end, but one of the referees, one of the technical officials, he really vented with me, and he basically scolded me, you know. It reminded me when I was in high school or when I did something really bad, and he got really angry. Luckily, you know, touch wood, nothing happened, nothing bad happened, but still, it was more the scary moment, thinking that maybe something bad could have happened. Putting that on the side, it was amazing. Towards the end, we ran together. And imagine that, I think it was a little over 9 hours of running. So, an incredible feat. I think now that this race has finished, it really reminded me the value of friendship, especially when you are here overseas, because as I always say, since I'm on the other side of the planet, your friends are your family, or the family that you choose. And on top of that, it really hit me, because sometimes there will be jokes here and there like, hey Emilio, are you doing your comeback? When are you gonna come back to long distance racing, endurance training? And it's hard to say because I still have my own challenge right now. But what I can say is that it was really inspiring. Now I'm running a bit more. I just said a bit more, nothing crazy like Ultraman. That was way too much. But who knows? I'm just gonna try to continue, focused on my goals, and basically try and keep improving every day. And I want to leave you with that message. If you're listening to this, watching this, thinking, oh, it is impossible for me to do a race like Ultraman, it may not be. I think that's one of the main things, or one of the reasons why Nestorin chose to do this race, just to prove himself that he could do something that he wanted to do. And the reason I'm just finishing up with this message is because the Ultraman may take different shapes or forms for you. Maybe some of you are thinking of doing a marathon. Maybe some of you are thinking of passing an exam like me. Maybe IELTS or PT is your Ultraman right now. And then you're gonna have a different challenge. So, and of course, remember, if you would like extra help, my June courses are starting in 10 days. So feel free to get in touch. But in all seriousness, it's like knowing that if you put your heart into something, if you practice, if you're disciplined, there is the chance of you achieving your goals. And I think that is extremely motivational, to say the least. So what an experience and what a race. I hope that everything goes well. Whoop. And well, a bit of a different episode. I hope you liked it. I hope that you are motivated as much as I am, and that you enjoyed it as much as I did. I'll see you in the next one. Take care, and bye for now.